Welcome to ALP Corner, Family Law in the Heart of Houston.
Welcome back to ALP Corner, Family Law in the Heart of Houston with attorney Allecia Pottinger, CEO of ALP Law Firm. With over 25 years of experience guiding families through Texas divorces and custody disputes, Allecia brings clarity, compassion, and practical strategy to every conversation. I'm Kevin Rosenquist, and today we're looking at a celebrity story that grabbed national headlines: the custody dispute between Jonas and Sophie Turner, and what it can teach Texas parents about co-parenting, relocation, and keeping the focus on your children. Allecia, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
So for those who only caught headlines, can you briefly summarize what was going on between Jonas and Sophie Turner and why it became such a complicated custody situation?
Well, at this particular point, you had one party from the UK and the other party from the United States. And so that doesn't happen. So, how do you co parent when you're in different continents?
Yeah.
That makes for difficult co parenting experiences. And then you have an extra added layer with Jonas being a person who is on the road touring and doing musician things, that was an extra added layer, along with his wife, who was, doing shoots and whatever with the Games of Thrones, but they seemed to work it out, and that was one good thing. I remember both of them commented how each of them was good parents. So, and she commented she ended up with custody, and she commented that he was a good father.
Hmm.
So if you can keep that in mind, that's that child's father, or mother, that's that child's mother, it goes a long way as far as co-parenting.
Yeah, is it something that you find is difficult for people to keep the focus on the kids?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, unfortunately, and you have to rewind. Let's bring it back, and put the kids in the center of the decision making.
Yeah. So obviously, you just mentioned that this case involved parents living in different countries, different continents, as you said. Under
Mhm.
Texas law, how does jurisdiction work when one parent wants to move a child out of state or maybe even out of the country?
Okay, a lot of it is going to depend on, are they moving permanently? Is this temporarily? Because we have service members. We just uh, not too long ago recognized veterans. We have service members who may be stationed in different continents. And if it's only temporary, the courts will allow that. But as long as it doesn't interfere with school, see, and those are things that have to be taken in consideration. What's in the best interest of the children? I can tell you that Texas courts do not like kiddos being trekked across the country and cross the highways and byways and flyways, um, to have visitation. They like a more stable environment for the children, and it works better if the children are stable. So the less that a child is going to be moved, the more likely a court is going to go with the parents' wishes.
So if a situation arises where a parent wants to relocate a child, the other parent, if the other parent agrees to it, then we're all good, right? No need to do anything. We're fine. And then if a parent doesn't agree with it, what do they do then?
At that point, they're going to have to file. In Texas, they have to file for a modification. If the court order, and normally it will, have a geo restriction for the parent. And so, what will happen is they'll file a modification and say, I'd like to relocate. But during the pendency of the action, that parent won't be able to relocate until after um, the final court date or final trial has happened and a verdict has been rendered or judgment has been rendered at that particular time. So,
Okay. You know, in like these high profile cases, situations, we talked about Jeff Bezos in the past. There can be a lot of public back and forth. You know, how do Texas courts view parents who share details of a custody case online or in the media?
ooh, ouch.
Don't do
That
it.
no good. No good. You keep children and the court battle out of the public eye because the tech with technology, children can just happen to come across the information, and you want to keep children out of grown people's business, as we would
Hmm.
say. My great grandmother would say that's grown folk business. You
Hmm.
don't need, you a child, you don't need to be involved in that. And so we're old school. You keep children out of grown people's business, and that's the reason why we don't look favorably on parents posting about the litigation in the case.
Yeah. When you say don't look fondly on it, what exactly does the court do about it? I mean, they can only do so much, but it just obviously
Mhm.
they take it into consideration when they're ruling. Is that the case?
Absolutely. Not
Mm,
only do they take it in consideration when they're ruling, they will also put what we call injunctions in place, which would say you are enjoined from posting on social media about this particular case while it's going on, and that's something that will have to be followed, and if they don't follow it, it could be subject to contempt. So it is very serious that you're going to follow what the judge has ordered, so to speak.
hmm. And the thinking on that is really about the kids. That's the
Correct.
reasoning for doing that. So if there's no kids
Correct.
involved, does the court care?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
No, not really.
Yeah. I'll never understand why people air their dirty laundry on social media, but hey, that's a story for another podcast, I suppose, huh?
Exactly. Exactly.
When parents live far apart, just
Mhm.
naturally, are there tools or plans that can help maintain consistent contact between the children and both parents?
Yes, we have parenting apps that um, the I'll say the primo is our family wizard, and they have talking parents and app close. But these particular applications, the parents can talk to the children. We have electronic communication where they can FaceTime these days. That
Yep.
wasn't available when I started, I
Yeah.
should say. Um, and you could do Zoom. There's a lot of different ways in which a parent can stay connected. I even know I had a gentleman that kept up with his daughter. They used to play video games, and they would, spend a few hours just connecting that way on a video game. Now, don't ask me how it worked, but that's what they would that's what they would do in some form of gaming, and that was the way they loved, whether it's Foresight or Fortnite or
Fortnite.
something.
Yeah. Hmm.
Uh-huh, uh-huh, and they would play that. So,
That's
yes, it's
cool. Yeah, that's cool
definitely
to have those options. You know, like you said, I mean, Zoom, FaceTime, all of that stuff. It's so
mhm,
different than
mhm.
when you and I were kids and we didn't have any of that kind of stuff. So,
Correct, correct.
um, yeah, my Nintendo did not connect to the internet because the internet didn't exist. So
Yes,
that was,
exactly.
we've talked a lot about best interest of the child. Very big standard, very very big deal for Texas. But parents, might have new opportunities somewhere else that can really benefit them, benefit the family.
Mhm.
How do their, you know, they kind of lose a bit of the right to just take whatever they want if they want to stay in their child's life to some degree. But
Hmm.
does the Texas court balance this kind of best interest of the child versus parents' right to pursue new opportunities in
Yes,
certain ways?
they really will. And I'll give you a good example. If you have a parent that's really not involved with the child, they don't pay child support. They don't really come around and see the child. They're not participating in sports. They're not, none of that. A lot of times the court is just going to say, "Go ahead, mom, dad, move." They're not participating anyway, and so you might as well go ahead and move. But the opposite is true when you have a very involved parent and who's helping to lift the financial burden of the other party in raising the child. But the courts will look to what's the opportunity for the child and the family, whether this will be a promotion, whether it will significantly impact, and is there opportunities for the child to thrive. um, there's a lot of different factors that the court will weigh in and look at.
Are there practical things that you tell your clients to document or plan for if they anticipate a dispute related to relocation?
Document time spent with the child, document expenses that have been paid, document um, um, what type of participation, not just they participated, but what type were they really involved. I had a dad that was, literally in his son's, he was coaching his son's um, um, football team. So he was very involved in his son's life. And the court looked at that and said, mm-mm, no, we're not going to let you, mom, we're not going to let you move out because this dad is just way too involved in his son's life for you to just rip that apart for and and one judge in particular, he was being very, very facetious. He said, "You know what, mom? You have every right to go and be with your boyfriend. You have every right to, move and do this, but the child is staying here with the dad. So you have a choice. You can stay here,
Hmm.
or dad will have custody."
Yeah, that's a big decision to make there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's interesting stuff though because like I think that a lot of parents, life changes happen, especially if you're young and you still got a
Mm-hmm.
lot of your career ahead of you and perhaps remarriage or whatever. But I think a lot of parents might fear that once a custody order is in place, they're stuck, right?
And that's not the case. If you can present a good case to the court for why you would want to move. For example, we're talking about that military family.
Right.
We're in a conservative state. You're saluting the flag and you say, this person is serving their country. They need an opportunity to be able to move outside of the country or outside of the state. And a lot of times they'll go with that, most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it shows some stability for the child, that the parent is married, not just going to another state because of a boyfriend or,
Yeah.
or fiance or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. You
Or they
you
like the
want to
weather
be married.
better or something like that. Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So that those are the factors.
It sounds like the Texas courts really do take each situation as its own. There's no like standard operating procedures, if you will. They
No,
actually look at all the nuances of each individual case, huh?
absolutely. It is on a case by case basis.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And is that does you know does it make it harder in some ways to not have sort of a standard set because it's very dependent on perhaps what judge you get or what lawyer you have or all of that?
Actually, it is. The issue is you need to know your judges. What are judges looking for? What do they need to hear? Um, and typically there's it's not cookie cutter, but there are some things that you can do to minimize what we'll say this broad spectrum. And what it is there's a case called the Holly case, and it has in that Holly case it has factors that show what is in the best interest of the children. And part of it is the wishes and desires of the children, the plans that the parent has for the child and the child's growth. What is the psychological and psychiatric issues, emotional development of the child, all those factors, and you want to play to those factors when you're in court. And so at that particular time, um, if you can support your facts to meet those particular elements, you have a good case of winning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Makes sense to me. Interesting stuff for sure. Well, thank you very much, Allecia. That wraps up today's episode of ALP Corner, Family Law in the Heart of Houston. If you'd like to learn more about attorney Allecia Pottinger and her work at ALP Law Firm, visit alplawfirm.com. There you're going to find helpful resources about Texas custody, visitation, and co-parenting to help you guide your next step. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe. We very much appreciate it. Allecia, I always appreciate you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.